Marcus Wellington had everything money could buy. At 35, he owned a chain of luxury hotels across the country, drove cars worth more than most people's houses, and lived in a mansion that could fit 50 families. But there was one thing his wealth couldn't guarantee him: true love. Standing at his office window on the 40th floor, Marcus looked down at the busy streets below. People rushed around like tiny ants, each with their own problems and dreams. He envied them sometimes. They had real relationships, real connections. His life felt like a beautiful prison made of gold and diamonds. "Mr. Wellington, your fiancée is here to see you," his secretary announced through the intercom. Marcus straightened his tie and put on his best smile. Victoria Sterling walked into his office like she owned the place. She was stunning, tall, blonde, with perfect features that belonged on magazine covers. Her designer dress probably cost more than most people earned in a month. "Darling," Victoria purred, kissing his cheek carefully so she wouldn't smudge her lipstick. "I have the most wonderful news about our wedding plans." Marcus listened as she described her latest ideas for their upcoming wedding. Ice sculptures shaped like swans, 1,000 white roses flown in from Ecuador, a cake that cost $15,000. Everything was about showing off, about impressing people, about being seen. "What do you think, Marcus?" Victoria asked, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "It sounds perfect," he replied automatically, though his heart felt heavy. Did she love him or his money? He'd been asking himself this question for months. That evening, Marcus sat alone in his study, swirling a glass of expensive whiskey. The room was filled with awards, certificates, and photos of him with important people. But none of it felt real anymore. He thought about his parents, who had died in a car accident 5 years ago. They had been deeply in love for 30 years, sharing simple pleasures and supporting each other through everything. His phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. "Can't wait to be Mrs. Wellington. The prenup meeting is tomorrow at 2 p.m. Love you." Marcus stared at the message. Even their love was being handled by lawyers and contracts. He needed to know if Victoria truly loved him or if she was just another person trying to use him for his wealth. The next morning, Marcus called his best friend and business partner, David Shun. They had known each other since college, and David was one of the few people who treated Marcus like a normal person. "I need your help with something unusual," Marcus said over coffee in his private office. David raised an eyebrow. "How unusual are we talking?" Marcus took a deep breath. "I want to test Victoria. I need to know if she really loves me. And how exactly do you plan to do that?" "I'm going to pretend to be paralyzed. I'll fake a skiing accident and see how she reacts when I'm no longer the powerful, successful man she fell in love with." David nearly choked on his coffee. "Are you insane? That's incredibly risky. What if she finds out you're lying?" "Then I'll know she's not the right woman for me," Marcus replied firmly. "David, I can't marry someone who only loves my money and status. I need to know the truth." After much discussion, David reluctantly agreed to help. They spent weeks planning the elaborate scheme. Marcus would go on a solo skiing trip to his cabin in Colorado. David would call Victoria with news of a terrible accident. Marcus would return in a wheelchair, claiming to be paralyzed from the waist down. "You'll need someone to help take care of you," David pointed out. "Victoria will expect you to have proper care." "I'll hire a private nurse," Marcus said. "Someone professional who can help maintain the illusion." That's when David suggested something that would change everything. "Actually, I know someone. My cousin Elena just finished nursing school. She's been looking for work, and she's completely trustworthy. Plus, she doesn't know anything about your wealth or social circle." 2 weeks later, Marcus was sitting in a hospital bed, having just returned from his accident. The skiing trip had gone perfectly. He'd simply spent the time alone at his cabin, practicing how to use a wheelchair and preparing for the performance of his lifetime. Elena Rodriguez arrived at his mansion on a rainy Thursday morning. She was nothing like the people who usually surrounded Marcus. She was petite, with dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail and kind brown eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Her clothes were clean but clearly not expensive, and she carried herself with quiet confidence rather than the flashy boldness he was used to. "Mr. Wellington," she said, shaking his hand firmly. "I'm Elena Rodriguez, your nurse. I'm here to help you adjust to your new situation." Marcus was struck by her direct, professional manner. She didn't seem impressed by his wealth or intimidated by his reputation. She treated him like any other patient who needed her help. "The doctors have given me your medical files," Elena continued, pulling out a folder. "I understand this is a difficult adjustment for you. My job is to help you maintain your independence while ensuring your safety and health." Over the next few days, Elena proved to be remarkably capable. She helped Marcus navigate his wheelchair, taught him exercises to maintain his upper body strength, and organized his medical supplies with military precision. But what surprised Marcus most was how she spoke to him. "You're feeling sorry for yourself," she said bluntly on his third day home, after finding him staring out the window with a dejected expression. Marcus was shocked. No one had spoken to him so directly in years. "Excuse me." "Self-pity," Elena repeated, adjusting his blanket. "I've seen 100 times. People think their life is over because something changes. But you're still alive, still intelligent, still capable of many things. You can either focus on what you've lost or figure out what you can still do." Her words stung because they were true, or would have been true if his situation were real. Marcus found himself admiring her straightforward honesty. It was refreshing after years of people telling him only what they thought he wanted to hear. Meanwhile, Victoria's reaction to his condition was exactly what Marcus had feared. She visited every day, but her discomfort was obvious. She sat as far from his wheelchair as possible, checking her phone constantly and cutting her visits short with various excuses. "This is so hard for me, Marcus," Victoria said during one visit, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. "Seeing you like this, it's just not what I imagined for our future." "What exactly did you imagine?" Marcus asked quietly. Victoria looked uncomfortable. "Well, traveling together, attending galas, being the power couple everyone admires." "Now," she gestured helplessly at his wheelchair. Marcus felt his heart sink. Even though he was pretending, her reaction showed him exactly what kind of person she really was. She was already pulling away from him, and they weren't even married yet. In contrast, Elena treated him with consistent respect and kindness. She never showed pity or discomfort around his wheelchair. Instead, she focused on practical solutions and maintaining his dignity. "Your muscles are getting weak from lack of use," she told him one morning. "We need to establish a proper exercise routine. It's important to stay as strong as possible." She had converted part of his gym into a rehabilitation space, complete with parallel bars and specialized equipment. Every morning, she guided him through exercises designed to maintain his health and mobility. "You're very dedicated," Marcus observed one day as Elena helped him transfer from his wheelchair to the exercise mat. "It's my job," she replied simply. "But more than that, every person deserves to live their best possible life, regardless of their circumstances." As days turned into weeks, Marcus found himself looking forward to Elena's company more than anyone else's. She had a quiet intelligence that impressed him. During her therapy sessions, she would tell him about her studies, her family, and her dreams of someday opening a rehabilitation center for people who couldn't afford private care. "Why nursing?" Marcus asked one afternoon as she helped him with his physical therapy. "Elena's face sochtenet." "My younger brother was born with cerebral palsy. Growing up, I watched how some nurses treated him like he was broken, while others saw him as a whole person who just needed different kinds of help. The good ones change his life. I wanted to be one of the good ones." Marcus was moved by her story. Here was someone who had chosen a difficult profession not for money or status, but because she genuinely wanted to help people. It was completely foreign to his world of business deals and profit margins. One evening, Marcus was having dinner alone in his dining room when he heard Elena in the kitchen, talking on the phone in Spanish. Her voice sounded stressed, and he could hear her saying "no puedo," "I can't," repeatedly. After she hung up, he wheeled himself to the kitchen doorway. Elena was sitting at the small table where the staff usually ate, her head in her hands. "Is everything all right?" Marcus asked. Elena looked up, quickly wiping her eyes. "I'm sorry, Mr. Wellington. I thought you were resting." "What's wrong?" She hesitated, clearly not wanting to burden him with her problems. "It's nothing I can't handle." Marcus maneuvered his wheelchair closer. "Elena, you take care of me every day. The least I can do is listen if you need to talk." After a moment, Elena's shoulders sagged. "My brother Miguel needs surgery. His condition is getting worse, and without the operation, the doctors say he might not walk much longer. But my family can't afford it, and the insurance won't cover the full cost." Marcus felt a strange tightness in his chest. This woman, who worked so hard and cared for others with such dedication, couldn't help her own brother when he needed it most. Meanwhile, Marcus had enough money to pay for 100 such surgeries without even noticing the expense. "How much does the surgery cost?" he asked quietly. Elena shook her head. "Mr. Wellington, I wasn't telling you this to ask for money. Sometimes it helps to say things out loud." But Marcus couldn't let it go. That night, he lay in bed thinking about Elena's brother, about her family struggle, and about the vast difference between her problems and Victoria's complaints about wedding flowers and seating arrangements. The next morning, Victoria arrived earlier than usual, carrying several shopping bags and wearing a bright smile that seemed forced. "I've been thinking," she announced, settling into the chair across from his wheelchair. "Maybe we should postpone the wedding, just until you're better." Marcus wasn't surprised, but it still hurt to hear it confirmed. "Better?" Victoria's smile faltered. "Well, the doctor said there's always hope for improvement, right? Maybe with time and therapy, and if I never improve? If this is permanent?" The silence stretched between them like a chasm. Victoria's eyes filled with tears, but Marcus suspected they were more for herself than for him. "I can't do this, Marcus," she whispered finally. "I thought I could, but I can't spend my life taking care of someone who isn't what I used to be." Marcus finished for her. "Victoria nadie miserably." "I'm sorry. I know that makes me a terrible person, but I have to be honest. This isn't the life I wanted." After Victoria left, Marcus sat alone in his study, staring at the engagement ring she'd placed on his desk. He should have felt vindicated. His test had worked exactly as he'd expected. But instead, he just felt empty and sad. Elena found him there an hour later, still holding the ring. "She left," he said simply. Elena's expression was gentle, but not surprised. "I'm sorry. Are you?" "She was going to be my wife." Elena sat down across from him, her manner professional but kind. "Mr. Wellington, a wife should be someone who loves you in sickness and in health. Someone who sees your worth beyond your circumstances. You deserve better than someone who abandons you when life gets difficult." Her words struck him deeply. Here was this woman, who barely knew him, showing more compassion and understanding than his fiancée of 2 years. That evening, as Elena was preparing to leave for the day, Marcus made a decision that surprised even him. "Elena, I want to help with your brother's surgery." She turned around, startled. "Mr. Wellington, I told you I wasn't asking for, I know you weren't. That's exactly why I want to help." Marcus moved his wheelchair closer to where she stood. "You've taken care of me without asking for anything in return. You've shown me more genuine kindness in these past weeks than most people have in years. Please, let me do this." Elena's eyes filled with tears. "I can't accept that much money from you. It wouldn't be right." "Why not? I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. What good is it if I can't help people who truly need it?" They talked for another hour, with Elena eventually agreeing to accept his help after Marcus convinced her that it would mean more to him than to her. As she gathered her things to leave, she paused at the door. "Mr. Wellington, I hope you know that your worth isn't determined by whether you can walk or not. You're a good man with a kind heart. The right person will see that and love you for who you are, not for what you can do for them." After Elena left, Marcus sat in his empty mansion, surrounded by luxury, but feeling more alone than ever. But for the first time since starting this charade, he didn't feel completely hopeless. Elena's words echoed in his mind, and he found himself thinking not about what he had lost, but about what he was learning. The test had revealed Victoria's true nature, just as he'd planned. But it was also revealing something else entirely, that genuine care and affection couldn't be bought or faked. Elena's kindness came from who she was as a person, not from any agenda or expectation of reward. As he prepared for bed that night, Marcus realized that his fake disability was teaching him more about real relationships than all his wealth and success ever had. But he also knew that the longer he maintained this lie, the more complicated things would become, especially as his feelings for Elena continued to grow stronger each day. The days following Victoria's departure brought an unexpected peace to Marcus's life. Without the constant pressure of maintaining appearances for his former fiancée, he found himself relaxing into a routine that centered around Elena's care and their growing friendship. Elena arrived each morning at 8 sharp, always carrying a small thermos of coffee and wearing scrubs that were impeccably clean despite their obvious age. She had a way of moving through his mansion that was both respectful and comfortable, treating the opulent surroundings as simply the place where a patient lived rather than something to be awed by. "Good morning, Mr. Wellington," she would say, checking his blood pressure and asking about his sleep. "How are we feeling today?" Marcus had begun to look forward to these morning check-ins more than he cared to admit. Elena's presence brought a sense of normalcy to his elaborate deception that he hadn't expected. She treated him like a person rather than a problem to be solved or a source of wealth to be tapped. "I've been thinking about your exercise routine," Elena said one morning, reviewing her notes. "You're making good progress with upper body strength, but we need to focus more on cardiovascular health. Being in a wheelchair doesn't mean your heart should get lazy." She had researched adaptive sports and found several activities that wheelchair users enjoyed. Her enthusiasm was infectious as she described wheelchair basketball, racing, and even rock climbing. "There's a whole community of athletes who compete in wheelchairs," she explained, showing him videos on her tablet. "Some of them are faster and stronger than people who can walk normally." Marcus watched the videos with genuine interest, struck by the determination and joy on the athletes' faces. "You really believe I could do something like this?" "I believe you can do anything you set your mind to," Elena replied without hesitation. "Your legs might not work, but your heart and spirit are completely intact." Her words hit him harder than she could have known. Even though his paralysis was fake, her unwavering belief in his capabilities moved him deeply. It was so different from Victoria's immediate assumption that his life was essentially over. As the weeks passed, Marcus found excuses to spend more time with Elena beyond their scheduled therapy sessions. He would ask her to join him for lunch, claiming he needed company to maintain his appetite. He requested her help organizing his study, saying he needed someone with fresh eyes to make the space more accessible. During these extended interactions, Marcus learned more about Elena's background. She had grown up in a working-class family where her parents both held multiple jobs to make ends meet. Despite the financial struggles, her family was close-knit and supportive. "My mother always said that being poor in money doesn't mean being poor in love," Elena shared one afternoon as they worked together organizing his bookshelves. "Our house was small and crowded, but it was full of laughter and music and good food." Marcus tried to imagine such a childhood. His own upbringing had been privileged but lonely. Private tutors, expensive boarding schools, and parents who were often too busy building their business empire to spend much time with their only child. "Do you miss it? Your family home?" Marcus asked. Elena's eyes grew wistful. "Every day. But Miguel needs to be near the specialized medical center here in the city. My parents moved here 2 years ago, so he could get better care. They both work in hotel housekeeping now, long hours for not much pay, but they do it for him." The irony wasn't lost on Marcus that Elena's parents were cleaning rooms in hotels that might very well be part of his own chain. The thought made him uncomfortable in a way he couldn't quite articulate. "You must be proud of them," he said quietly. "More proud than I can express," Elena replied, her voice thick with emotion. They sacrificed everything for Miguel and me. I became a nurse partly to honor their example, to dedicate my life to helping others the way they've helped us. That evening, Marcus found himself thinking about sacrifice and dedication. Elena's family had given up their comfortable life to help Miguel. Elena herself had chosen a demanding, often thankless profession because she wanted to help people. Meanwhile, Marcus had spent his adult life accumulating wealth and status symbols, but had he ever truly sacrificed anything for someone else's benefit? The answer troubled him because he knew it was no. The next morning brought unexpected news. Elena arrived looking excited but trying to contain her emotions. "Mr. Wellington, I have wonderful news," she said, her professional demeanor cracking slightly to reveal her joy. "Miguel's surgery has been scheduled for next week. Thanks to your generosity, he's going to get the help he needs." Marcus felt a warmth in his chest that no business deal or financial success had ever provided. How is he feeling about it? "Nervous, but hopeful," Elena replied. "He wants to meet you, actually. He says he wants to thank the man who's giving him a chance to keep walking." The request caught Marcus off guard. "I don't think that's necessary. Please," Elena interrupted gently. "It would mean the world to him. And to me." 3 days later, Elena arrived at the mansion with her family in tow. Miguel was a thin 14-year-old with his sister's kind eyes and a smile that seemed too bright for someone dealing with such serious health challenges. He moved slowly but determinedly on crutches, his parents flanking him protectively. Marcus felt nervous as he greeted them, acutely aware that he was deceiving not just Elena but her entire family. Miguel's parents, Rosa and Carlos, were exactly as Elena had described them, hardworking people with gentle faces and hands that showed the evidence of years of physical labor. "Mr. Wellington," Miguel said in careful English, "thank you for helping me. I promise I will use my legs to do good things." The simple sincerity of the boy's words nearly broke Marcus's heart. Here was a child facing uncertain surgery with courage and gratitude, while Marcus played elaborate games with other people's emotions. Rosa approached Marcus's wheelchair and took his hands in hers. "God bless you," she said in accented but clear English. "You give my son hope. You give our family hope." Carlos nodded earnestly. "If there is ever anything we can do for you, anything at all, you only have to ask." Marcus was overwhelmed by their gratitude. These people, who had so little materially, were offering him everything they had. The contrast with Victoria's immediate abandonment couldn't have been more stark. After Elena's family left, Marcus sat alone in his study, staring at a photo Miguel had given him, a family portrait taken at Miguel's 13th birthday party. They were crowded together in what was obviously a small apartment, but their faces radiated happiness and love. "That was kind of you," Elena said, appearing in the doorway. "Letting them come here. I know you value your privacy." "They're wonderful people," Marcus replied honestly. "You're lucky to have them." "I know," Elena said, settling into a chair near his desk. "They taught me that the most important things in life can't be bought or sold." Her words stung because Marcus knew she was right, but he also knew he was living a lie that grew more complicated every day. His feelings for Elena were becoming harder to ignore, but how could he tell her the truth now? She had opened her heart and her family to him based on sympathy for his condition. What would happen when she discovered it was all an elaborate deception? The following week brought Miguel's surgery. Elena took time off to be with her family at the hospital, leaving Marcus alone for the first time since his accident. He had arranged for a temporary nurse, but the woman was coldly professional and efficient in a way that made him appreciate Elena's warmth even more. On the day of Miguel's operation, Marcus found himself unable to concentrate on anything. He called the hospital twice, claiming to be checking on his nurse's family situation, but really just wanting news about the boy's condition. When Elena called him that evening, her voice was thick with exhaustion and relief. "The surgery went perfectly," she said. "The doctor says Miguel should regain full mobility with proper physical therapy." "That's wonderful news," Marcus replied, and He meant it more than any congratulations he'd ever offered on business deals or social achievements. Mr. Wellington, Elena continued, her voice softer now, I can't ever repay you for this. You've given my brother his future back. Elena, Marcus said quietly, seeing your family's happiness is payment enough. There was a pause on the line, and when Elena spoke again, her voice was different somehow. You know, when I first started working for you, I thought I was just taking care of another wealthy person who'd had some bad luck. But you're not like other rich people I've met. Marcus's heart began racing. What do you mean? You're kind without expecting anything in return. You listen when people talk to you. You treat everyone with respect, regardless of their position. I've never met anyone quite like you. The warmth in her voice made Marcus's chest tight with guilt and longing. Elena was falling for the man she thought he was, a wounded but generous soul who needed her care. But that man was partly an illusion, built on deception and maintained through daily lies. When Elena returned to work 3 days later, something had shifted between them. She was still professional and caring, but there was a new softness in her interactions with Marcus. She lingered longer during their conversations, smiled more readily at his attempts at humor, and seemed to find excuses to touch his shoulder or hand during their therapy sessions. Marcus found himself torn between joy and guilt. Every moment with Elena felt precious and real, but he knew it was built on a foundation of lies. He began to consider telling her the truth, but the longer he waited, the more impossible it seemed. One evening, as Elena was preparing to leave, she paused by his wheelchair where he sat reading in the living room. Mr. Wellington, can I ask you something personal? Marcus looked up, his heart racing. Of course. Do you ever think about dating again? I mean, I know Victoria wasn't right for you, but there must be someone out there who could appreciate the man you really are. The question hung in the air between them. Marcus could see something in Elena's eyes that he'd been hoping and dreading to see, a personal interest that went beyond professional care. I think, Marcus said carefully, that finding real love requires being completely honest with someone. And honesty, that's harder than it seems sometimes. Elena nodded hashfully. I suppose when you have money and status, it must be difficult to know who really cares about you versus who cares about what you can provide. That's exactly the problem, Marcus admitted, the truth of it hitting him hard. Well, Elena said, her cheeks slightly pink, I think the right person would love you for your character, not your circumstances. Money and status, those things fade or change. But kindness and integrity, those are forever. After she left, Marcus sat in the growing darkness of his living room, wrestling with the decision that was becoming unavoidable. Elena was developing real feelings for him, but they were based on a lie. Every day, he maintained the deception, made the eventual revelation more cruel. But there was another complication he hadn't anticipated. Marcus realized he was falling in love with Elena too, not just with her kindness or her beauty, but with her strength, her values, and her unwavering integrity. She represented everything he'd been missing in his life of wealth and privilege. The irony was devastating. In pretending to be helpless, Marcus had found the one person who made him feel truly whole. In faking disability, he had discovered what it meant to be genuinely cared for. But the very deception that had brought them together was now the greatest obstacle to any real future. As he finally wheeled himself to bed that night, Marcus knew he was approaching a crossroads. He could continue the charade and hope that Elena's feelings would be strong enough to survive the eventual truth. Or he could confess everything now and risk losing the most meaningful relationship he'd ever experienced. Neither option offered any guarantee of happiness, but Marcus was beginning to understand that real love, the kind Elena had shown him every day, required the kind of courage he'd never needed in boardrooms or business deals. It required the courage to be completely vulnerable and truthful, regardless of the consequences. The question was whether he possessed that kind of courage, or whether his wealth and privilege had made him too comfortable with deception to ever risk genuine honesty. Miguel's recovery progressed beautifully over the following weeks, and Elena's joy was infectious. She would share updates during their therapy sessions, describing how her brother was already taking tentative steps and talking about returning to school soccer team trials in the spring. "He keeps saying he wants to score a goal for you," Elena told Marcus one morning as she helped him with his arm exercises. "He's convinced that you're his guardian angel." The guilt Marcus felt at these words was becoming increasingly unbearable. Miguel's gratitude was genuine and pure, based on real help that had changed his life. But the boy's hero worship was directed at a man who was fundamentally deceiving everyone who cared about him. "I'm sure he'll do well regardless," Marcus replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "He's got incredible determination. He gets that from our father," Elena said proudly. "Carlos never gives up on anything, no matter how impossible it seems." As if summoned by their conversation, Elena's phone rang. She glanced at the caller ID and smiled. "Speaking of my father, may I?" Marcus nodded, and Elena answered the call in rapid Spanish. Her expression quickly changed from happy to concerned, then to something approaching panic. She ended the call and stood motionless for a moment,